Tom Oar, who lived off the land and won people over with his traditional survival abilities, was the tough face of mountain men for many years. Fans were wondering about what transpired after he departed the show. Then he abruptly left the stage, leaving spectators in disbelief and wondering what had happened. What actually became of this frontiersman of the contemporary era? Was it a matter of personal preference, health concerns, or something far more enigmatic? Rumors and crazy hypotheses have circulated behind the scenes. We learn the truth regarding Tom's abrupt departure today, and we assure you that the truth is much more unexpected than the rumors. Although Mountain Men may appear to be simply another reality TV program, it provides something far more genuine and unvarnished. A world that most of us only ever see in novels, where daily existence is a test of willpower, where survival isn't a metaphor, and where comfort is measured in firewood, clean water, and a full pantry before winter comes in, is revealed by this popular History Channel series. Through the stories of those few people who have abandoned modern life to live on their own terms, off the grid, in the middle of harsh nature, the show immerses viewers in America's untamed frontiers. Not every episode is only a show. It provides a glimpse into a lifestyle that most people have forgotten. Men who don't just live in the woods are introduced to viewers. It is what shapes them. Among them, Eustace Conway, Tom Oar and Marty Merodo stand out not just for their ability to survive, but also for the sheer amount of character they bring to the screen. Eustace Conway creates a life in the foggy hills of North Carolina that seems to have been taken from a different era. Eustace is not content to merely survive on the land. He is motivated by a desire to preserve old survival knowledge. He instructs others on how to follow suit, teaching, making, and dealing with the ever-present dangers of weather and wild animals make up his everyday routine. However, his performance has sparked debate, with some admirers doubting the authenticity of his moments. Marty Merodo braves Alaska's harsh wilderness far to the north, where days with temperatures below 40 degrees are commonplace. Marty has a lot of grit, cutting firewood in heavy snow, navigating his bush aircraft into remote trapping areas, and fighting fatigue in the breath-stealing cold. It's not about running away from modern life for him, it's about accepting a new form of liberty. He had a loyal following that respected his strength and humility as a result of his calm fortitude and no-nonsense approach to danger. However, viewers first encountered Tom Oar, the guy who would become the series' central character, in the untamed Yak River Valley in Montana. Tom evolved into more than just a character. He was a former rodeo cowboy with leathery hands, a kind grin, and eyes that seemed to have seen 1,000 winters. He came to represent perseverance. Tom's life is a living example of the past, from making traditional clothing by hand out of animal hides, to preparing for a harsh 7-month winter all year long. No drama, no quick cuts, just honest, hard-won survival. When taken as a whole, these guys embody something subtly revolutionary, a return to the basics, a clutter-free life, where every decision has consequences, and every error might cost more than simply comfort. There is more to Mountain Men than just danger. It displays the splendor of living in harmony with the natural world, of upholding your principles and discovering purpose in the routine hardships that the majority of us never encounter. None of the cast's stories, however, resonated more deeply than Tom Oar's. Fans began to notice small changes as the seasons progressed, like slower motions, longer silences, and finally an absence that raised a lot of questions. And the mystery only deepens from there. Where is Tom now? What drove this legend of the mountains into isolation? Tom and Nancy, stay with us as we get into the center of his narrative. But in the icy wilderness of Montana, what was the mystery they kept silent? Tom and Nancy Oar's untold journey into the wild together. When Tom first met Nancy, silently, a new chapter started. One that was founded upon something deeper and not merely full of adventure, love, faith, and an unwavering will to live their lives as they see fit. The couple took a choice in the late 1970s that most people would never dare to think about. They filled an ancient, battered pickup vehicle with all they possessed. By the way, they used muskrat pelts to pay for a truck before driving into the heart of Montana. Just a common goal of exchanging the cacophony of civilization for the quiet of nature. No road plan, no assurances. They embarked on a journey that was both challenging and breathtaking when they arrived in the Montana wilderness. Tom Oar was once a symbol of survival in Montana's untamed mountains. However, few are aware of the tragic events that lurk underneath his tough lifestyle and serene countenance. The winters were harsh. Their bodies hurt from the constant cold, temperatures dropped, and food was occasionally in short supply. Nancy and Tom, however, remained intact. If anything, those difficult times simply made them closer and more determined. Out there, they weren't only getting by, they were gradually merging into the earth. Then came a pivotal moment that would influence how they lived the rest of their lives. On a trip to Billings, Tom found something antique yet strangely familiar when he strolled into a little American Indian store. The practice of tanning the brain. Tom became enraged by this ancient technique of softening and preserving animal skins by employing the creature's own brains. He practiced, researched, and eventually became proficient at it. A fresh route was made possible by that straightforward epiphany, not just a means of earning a livelihood, but also a stronger bond with the life they had choose. Their proficiency at brain tanning quickly introduced them to a larger group of wilderness enthusiasts and off-the-grid craftspeople, particularly at the yearly Black Powder Rendezvous. Tom's skills really came into their own here. People were inspired rather than merely amazed. Tom was a craftsman, not simply a guy living in the woods, a teacher, and in many respects a representation of a dying yet highly esteemed tradition. However, Tom never traveled that route by himself. Every blizzard, every failure, every minor triumph, Nancy was there. She acquired Tom's ferocity in hunting, trapping, and survival. Their Yak River Valley existence evolved into more than a tale of independence. It turned into a real-life illustration of what it means to create something enduring with your own hands, to transform a wilderness into a home, and to achieve all of this alongside the person you love. It wasn't always simple, of course. Long periods of seclusion, health problems, and many run-ins with the elements, from ferocious creatures to the harsh weather, were all part of the experience. However, Tom and Nancy remained steadfast throughout. They flourished in the wilderness rather than merely surviving it. And as time went on, their tale developed into a legacy, something even more significant. Tom, who is currently in his 80s, has taught more than simply how to survive. He has left behind a philosophy and way of life that are based on simplicity, reverence for the environment, and the unwavering conviction that one should live authentically. Tom Oar's ascent from mountaintops to rodeo rings. Tom Oar was a young guy pursuing a completely different ambition long before he rose to fame in the wilderness living community, one that boomed with the thunder of hooves and the unadulterated excitement of competing under the brilliant lights of rodeo venues, driven by bravery, difficult lessons, and an unquenchable thirst for independence. His journey from the mayhem of the rodeo to the peaceful, demanding wilds of Montana reads more like an epic metamorphosis than a change in vocation. In Rockford, Illinois, where Tom's narrative starts, the countryside was more than simply a place to grow up. It served as a testing site. The sound of hooves and the scent of leather influenced Tom's early life, because he was raised in a household where riding a horse was not only welcomed but expected. Under the careful supervision of his father, Tom developed his trick riding skills alongside his brother. Riding a horse would be sufficient for most children, but Tom desired more. He possessed a spark, a spirit that would not accept anything less than the best, even as a little youngster. That spark had grown into a fire by the time she was 15. Tom traveled to Ohio to compete in his first rodeo, pitch trekking with just a bull rope and his rigging kit. It was the start of a crazy and perilous journey that would continue for more than 20 years. He made a reputation for himself in the International Rodeo Association throughout the 1960s by not only participating but also winning. He consistently finished in the top 10, earning him recognition in the bull riding community. He received praise from teammates and applause from fans for his skill, boldness, and unwavering determination. However, there are perils associated with the rodeo life, and Tom was all too familiar with them. He encountered a bull named Woolly Bugger in 1970 on what ought to have been simply another ride. His life would be irrevocably altered by what followed. Tom was severely injured and knocked unconscious after being thrown roughly and stomped. The agony, the unconsciousness, and the harsh memory of his own death lingered with him at that very time, and something had changed in him. Even if he didn't leave the rodeo right soon, he was not drawn away by terror. Clarity was the key. The rodeo started to lose its luster over the course of the following 10 years. The excitement remained. However, he also realized that he was looking for something deeper and greater. Tom decided to put up his gear in 1981, which changed his life. However, he saw it as a beginning rather than an end. This time, the cry of the wild wasn't accompanied by spotlights and loud crowds. The sky were wide and the breezes were calm. Not all of Tom's early years were thrilling. They were forming. He learned more than just how to fall from the rodeo. It taught him how to rise, how to go forward, and how to live a life that is full of purpose and energy. In the Montana wilderness, where fortitude, perseverance, and inventiveness are not just helpful but essential for survival, these qualities would serve as the cornerstone of his life. He therefore kept his advantage as he departed the stadium. He carried it into the woods, rivers, and snow-capped valleys, where he and Nancy started creating a new type of legacy, one that isn't characterized by awards but rather by fortitude, reverence for the natural world, and an unbreakable connection. However, even the strongest people experience medical issues and breaking moments. But after all those years of relentless driving, what specifically caused Tom to slow down? The weight of celebrity, and Tom Oar's health clash as the wilderness strikes back. For many years, Tom Oar was a towering representation of mountain men's rustic knowledge and tenacious perseverance. Tom appeared to be almost unbeatable as a seasoned outdoor enthusiast, a survival expert, and a living reminder of a vanished way of life. The public's interest in Tom remained strong, even as the reality TV show included additional individuals who would rather live in the bush and survive off the land in the upcoming seasons. In addition to Montana's untamed scenery, viewers were captivated by the serene, unwavering presence of a man who had tamed it. Fans were therefore concerned when Tom momentarily left the limelight. There was a problem. When a sudden health crisis pushed Tom to face a challenge he couldn't track, trap, or wrestle to the ground during season 11 of the program, that anxiety became a concern. Tom started having trouble breathing one night. The problem was unexpected, came on unexpectedly, and was severe enough to put Tom and his wife Nancy in emergency mode. The couple traveled approximately 120 kilometers, or over 80 miles, across difficult terrain to get to the closest medical facility in Libby, Montana, as there were no hospitals in the area and no neighbors to contact. This was a powerful event for a man who had never had to visit a doctor for anything serious. His body was finally starting to show the effects of decades of harsh rodeo antics, freezing winters, and wilderness abrasions. It was determined that Tom had heart failure. Every breath was difficult because his heart wasn't beating as hard as it should, and fluid was accumulating in his lungs. The doctors didn't spend any time. Tom's medications were begun right away, and a cardiac monitor was installed to monitor any irregularities. Experts advised him to wear a defibrillator vest due to the remoteness of his house, serving as a sobering reminder that even the toughest mountain men have their limitations. But it wasn't simply the diagnosis that caught people's attention during this difficult period. It was the couple's unspoken bonding power. Nancy, who has always been his survival and life partner, took on additional responsibilities. She handled daily duties, took on more of the physical strain, and helped Tom get used to this new stage of life. Their cadence shifted, but they didn't waver in their commitment. A love that was created through fire and cold, and is now enduring the slow, creeping test of time and disease, was observed by viewers who had previously admired their off-grid existence. It was more than simply medical care that brought them to the clinic. It was an encounter with the real world. As they grew older, they had to ask themselves if the life they had established in the bush, remote from contemporary assistance, could still sustain them. For admirers, it served as a sobering reminder that the human body has its limitations regardless of one's level of experience or expertise. Nevertheless, Tom's spirit remained unwavering. Supported by Nancy's unwavering dedication, he continued, demonstrating to the audience what true perseverance looks like. Not only surviving a blizzard or cutting wood, but gracefully embracing death. However, health wasn't the only issue facing Tom and Nancy. As their fame increased, a new test surfaced that went right to the core of the life they had fought so hard to protect: notoriety. Tom talked openly about the less glamorous aspects of being a TV personality in the woods in an interview with the Kutan Valley Times. The couple's once private haven turned become a popular destination for interested tourists, even though they chose a house nestled deep among the enormous Cabinet Mountains. In the hopes of seeing the actual mountain men, tourists, admirers, and even newlyweds traveled from as far away as Switzerland to trek. Their retreat became a tourist destination one summer when the foot traffic became too much to handle. Tom never took the fans' affection and support for granted, and was grateful for it. However, he was unable to overlook the toll it had on their tranquility. It was exactly what they had been looking for in the wild, wide-open regions of Montana. And the way forward begins to seem very different when you mix a deteriorating heart with frequent visitation. The real story behind the gossip. Do you still have Tom Oar? Tom Oar immediately gained popularity among viewers when Mountain Men debuted in 2012. His outdoor talents were not the only thing that made him stand out as one of the original cast members, but for the serene knowledge gained from years of living near nature. However, supporters began to worry as the years passed. It was about something far more human: Tom's age and health, rather than the typical perils of mountain living. Concerns over Tom's health started to circulate online as he entered his late 70s and eventually his 80s. Getting reliable updates becomes more difficult the further one lives from contemporary culture. Confusion, anxiety, and ultimately a rumor mill fed by the internet resulted from that distance. When a phony obituary saying Tom Oar had died was published by a media source in 2020, it all came to a head. It wasn't a straightforward error. His life and purported death were realistically depicted in the obituary, which was rather comprehensive. Many admirers believed it to be authentic enough to spread it around on social media without bothering to check the source. Condolences were posted, tributes flowed in, and the rumor caught on like wildfire. The timing was what made it worse. At about the same time, Tom's appearances on the show had significantly decreased. Viewers started to notice that he wasn't as present as previously after season 9. Tom finally finds a cause to leave his cabin after more than 40 years of living in the Montana highlands. Many fans expected the worst because of his senior age and his history of a catastrophic medical emergency in season 11, where he experienced severe respiratory problems in the middle of the night. In that specific event, a concerning diagnosis was made. Tom's lungs had begun to fill with fluid, and his heart was failing. Even though he received medical attention and continued on, the incident fueled the death rumors that were already circulating. Much of the fan base was persuaded that Tom was no longer there by the combination of a phony obituary and a documented health issue. Many media sites went with the tale, particularly those that value clicks over accuracy, which further confused viewers who had developed a strong emotional bond with the adored mountain man. The rumor then reappeared in 2024 with fresh vigor. This time, according to some stories, Tom died quietly in Lakeland, Florida, at the age of 81. They only made ambiguous claims that led readers to question if they were ultimately accurate, without providing a specific reason of death. However, other sources adamantly maintained that Tom Oar was still alive and well, leading a more sedate life away from the spotlight, perhaps retired, but most definitely not dead. What is the truth then? More trustworthy sources have verified that Tom Oar is still alive despite the commotion. Despite his less frequent appearances on Mountain Men, he continues to play a significant role in bringing the wilderness of real life to our screens. Furthermore, it's normal for people who live near nature to want for seclusion after years of being in the spotlight, even though his disappearance may have caused concern. Tom Oar's hesitant dance with retirement. Still a wild man at heart, Tom Oar has had a wild, free and very natural life, one that most of us can only imagine. However, aging inevitably confronts even the most resilient souls. Additionally, Tom has begun to think more about the future in recent years. He is now confronting a difficult issue, after a protracted and difficult trek from rodeo arenas to the remote splendor of Montana's wilderness. How does life appear beyond the mountains? Grit and adventure have always been a part of Tom's path, whether he is trapping in snow-covered valleys or bucking bulls. He frequently makes jokes about being born 150 years too late, and it's obvious that he was created for a more straightforward era, when nature ruled and life was unadulterated. But as he and Nancy age, their way of life requires more than just physical might. It takes perseverance, and it's getting more difficult to maintain. Though they may sound grim, Tom's comments about perhaps becoming stretched out over the fleshing block are made with comedy and acceptance in mind. The future does not frighten him. He simply views things realistically. He has never been afraid of change, and his discussion about moving to Florida is indicative of that attitude. Giving up is not the point. Finding equilibrium, and a location where they may take in a more leisurely pace while maintaining their wild origins, is the goal. Tom believes that retiring does not imply giving up on life. It entails adjusting. However, even bringing it up has sparked a lot of conjecture. Many fans were left in the dark when he stepped away from the program, and since there were no definitive answers, the internet did what it always does and spread stories to fill the void. There was confusion in the center of it all. Tom's decreased screen time and his absence from several episodes served as the catalyst. The audience observed, inquired, and conjectured. Was he ill? Was he retired? Has he left? Tom and the show's producers didn't make any public statements, which just fueled the flames. Additionally, fans were alarmed when an outdated and fraudulent obituary that said Tom had died appeared online, because it contained personal information that gave the impression that it was true, even if it wasn't. The post went viral very fast. The rumors about Tom's death eventually subsided when he made a reappearance on Mountain Men, but a new hypothesis swiftly took their place. Had he and Nancy permanently retired to Florida? The pair does in fact spend their off-seasons in the Sunshine State, recuperating before heading back to the woods. Fan fears were only heightened by that pattern and his diminishing appearances. Tom himself seems unsure. What exactly does it mean to retire? He asked himself out loud in a moment of reflection. Do you simply sit there? The inquiry shows how much he has struggled with the concept. Is it possible for someone who has led such a busy, energetic life to turn off the wild? So far, the answer has been no. Tom and Nancy are still going strong in spite of the rumors, health worries, and the bitter weather. As season 11 began, the pair was getting ready for another harsh winter. Tom has been practicing survival techniques and mountain life for 48 years. He is among the show's most well-liked characters. Additionally, in episode 2, Tom was shown working alongside Sean McAfee, his old trapping partner, heart monitor and all. Is Tom merely adapting to change, or has the mountain finally begun to affect him? Yak River Valley life. Find out because you could be surprised by what follows. Tom and Nancy's unwavering connection to the Yak River Valley endures, despite the harsh conditions. Awe is still evoked by Tom and Nancy Oar's adventure into the harsh environment of Montana. As observed by mountain men, their existence in the isolated Yak River Valley is more than just a tale of survival. It is evidence of tenacity, loyalty, and the close connection between people and the natural world. They have been living off the grid for years, resolutely enduring harsh winters and erratic natural circumstances. However, a somewhat different vision, tinged with the certainty of time and change, has been presented in subsequent seasons of the show. Rumors of retirement and relocation become more prevalent as Tom's age and health issues become more apparent. As Tom continues to face the weather in spite of previous health concerns, viewers have watched with a mixture of respect and anxiety. As Tom and Nancy were ready for yet another long, harsh winter in the valley, Season 11 offered an especially poignant look into this reality. They persevered in spite of everything, assembling supplies, defending their house, and enduring the cold with the same tenacity that has made them adored characters on the program. However, the difficulties are not only physical. Once a secret haven, the Oars are now a destination for interested fans due to the rise in popularity of mountain men. Uninvited guests have been interfering more and more with the couple's beloved isolation. Tom has expressed conflicting emotions on his unexpected celebrity. Although he is moved by the fans' love and devotion, the constant interruptions have started to get to him. After all, rather than fame, they chose this way of life for its simplicity and tranquility. And then Florida. A possible retirement hideaway, a calmer lifestyle, and a milder environment. As the years pass, the prospect of moving south during Montana's most severe months is growing more and more attractive. Tom has been open about it, jokingly speculating about whether retirement entails completely giving up or simply finding a new rhythm. Although the pair hasn't decided on anything yet, it seems like a sensible move to slow down in an area where winter isn't as harsh. They are still bound to the valley though. It's more than simply home. It's a lifestyle. The Yaak River Valley is a unique location, tucked away in the shadow of snow-capped hills and dense vegetation. Here, winter is not a season, it's a conflict. Snow piled high, temperatures drop, and talent, forethought and willpower are necessary for survival. However, fresh difficulties emerge when the snow melts and summer revitalizes the soil. Rivers that are flooded, fauna that is ravenous, and a constant need to get ready for the future. Nancy and Tom are familiar with this terrain. They have a deeper understanding of the wild's rhythm than most people would ever have. They've done more than just survive, they've formed their lives around it, yet prospering in an environment that requires everything. Something primordial that has been forgotten in contemporary convenience is depicted in their narrative. A life in which each day counts, independence is essential, and a connection to nature is a need rather than a luxury. Silent legacy of Tom Oar and his existence as a mountain man. Tom Oar has had a very unusual existence. Tom and his first wife Janice Fraser experienced a very private period of his life before he became well known on Mountain Men. We do know that their relationship produced 2 children, Keely and Chad, but the exact date of their union is still unknown. Unfortunately, when Keely died in 2015, their narrative took a tragic turn. Her passing left the Oar family in a state of unfathomable grief for a long time. It would have been difficult enough for Tom to grieve in private, but it became even more emotionally taxing when he did it in front of the world. Nevertheless, the Oar family's resilience was evident despite the tragedy. Chad, Tom's son, persevered quietly, finding meaning and tranquility in the distance from the untamed Montana landscape. Chad and his wife, Kim Burnett, now reside in Florida, where they own a successful equine training facility. The controlled world of equestrian care in Ocala, Florida, which is renowned as the horse center of the world, is contrasted with the wild mountains in their work, creating an intriguing contrast to Tom's existence. The fact that each member of the family is carving out a route that respects their heritage while venturing into uncharted territory is evidence of the Oar's varied interests and skills. Tom's tale has been both inspirational and poignant back on Mountain Men. The birthday party for Tom, which was a touching homage to his years of tenacity, was one of the most memorable moments on the evening, and the straightforward happiness he derives from living in the outdoors. However, viewers were perplexed by Tom's abrupt withdrawal following that heartwarming episode. Where had he gone? Was this his final departure? This ambiguity only served to heighten the show's emotional impact by providing viewers with a window into the difficulties the rowers actually confront off-screen. Nevertheless, the family's strong ties and fortitude are evident in every hardship, whether it's via Chad's new life, Keely's memory, or Tom and Nancy's unwavering devotion. Even though Jack Oar, Tom's older brother, doesn't get as much attention, he has established a distinct career for himself. Jack, who has made appearances in more than 20 episodes of Mountain Men, has a more subdued demeanor and a more restrained attitude than Tom. Even though he doesn't actively seek attention, people are always aware of his appearances. Viewers respect Jack's composed, steady manner and the nuanced yet effective way he balances Tom's more gregarious personality. Their sibling relationship gives the show a fascinating depth and gives viewers an insight into a way of life that emphasizes tradition, simplicity, and close family relationships. Outside of the cameras, Tom, Jack, and Nancy use their skills to run Willow Bend Trading Post, their business. Handmade knives, leather products, and other artisan things that admirers like are displayed on their well-liked Facebook page. These goods are in high demand because to the quality and genuineness of each item, not alone the popularity of the program. Their tiny firm has grown into a successful business because to this combination of traditional talents and exposure to new technology. In addition to preserving a dying art, Tom's leather shirts, traditional attire, and handcrafted moccasins have added to his estimated net worth of $200,000. According to reports, his clothing sales alone may bring in thousands of dollars each month, proof of how his tough lifestyle has evolved into a reputable and sustainable brand. However, there is something much more precious hidden beneath the figures: a life based on independence, a passion for nature, and the power of family. Well, that's what I do. I like this. I'm content with my life and the work I perform. What do you think then? Your opinions on Tom Oar and his wife's experience would be greatly appreciated. Please leave a remark below. Remember to subscribe and like.